listen to our panelists' stories and experiences. Obviously, these panelists don't embody the whole Yale student body, but they do share their own unique experiences and views of their own unique time at Yale. And we hope that these experiences might give you an insight as to what life might be like at Yale. So in this discussion, we're aiming to have about an hour of conversation. The first half will be the panel answering questions that you've all submitted through the Google form that we had you guys sign up through. And the second half will be an open discussion where you guys can ask any questions that you still have lingering in your mind. And if it goes a little longer than an hour, that's fine. We'll still have some panelists stay on, as well as Harley and I, if you want to ask us any questions.
And also, we encourage you all to turn your cameras on so our panelists can see who they're talking to, and it's not just a name. But do keep in mind that we're going to be recording this whole session to put on YouTube later on. So if you turn your camera on, just make sure that that's what the assumption that you consent to being recorded. And without further ado, we'll kick things off with our introductions then. Let's have each of our panelists introduce themselves with their names, their hometowns, years, majors, pronouns, and also the first thing that they're going to do when the quarantine is over.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and start. My name is Grace, and I am from Las Vegas, Nevada. I am a statistics and data science major. There was also a brief moment when I was majoring in econ and math, so if anyone has any questions about that too, I'm happy to answer that. I go by she, her, hers, and the first thing that I'm going to do after quarantine is over is hopefully go get boba.
Oh my God.
I'll go next. My name is Guan. I'm from Oakland, California, senior. I'm majoring in molecular biology, also on the pre-med track. My pronouns are he, him, his. And I was also going to say go get boba with my friends, but maybe go get like In-N-Out or something.
We'll go together.
All right, let's go.
What's up, guys? My name is Khalil Green. I'm from Germantown, Maryland, which is right outside of Washington, D.C. I'm majoring in history right now, and I'm a junior in Yale College. I go by he, him, his pronouns. The first thing that I'm going to do when quarantine is over, hopefully pick up my stuff that's all back at school, because we all got evicted from campus during spring break.
Hey guys, my name is Max. I'm currently a senior at Yale. I'm from Florence, Alabama, and I'm also studying molecular biology, also on a pre-med track. So if you guys have any questions about STEM courses relating to that, please let me know. When quarantine is over, I plan on trying to hit the gym. I love getting physically fit, so looking forward to that.
Hi guys, I'm Carly. I'm from Wisconsin. I'm a senior psychology major. I use she, her, hers pronouns. And the first thing I want to do when quarantine is over is see one of my friends from Yale who doesn't live like crazy far from me.
I'm Sarah. I am from Zimbabwe, from Harare, Zimbabwe. I'm an English major and she, her, hers. And when quarantine is over, I don't know, life hasn't changed too much for me now. I'm living off campus. But I think I have a trip planned to Puerto Rico. So that would be fun to go on once quarantine's done.
Hi everyone, my name is Sharon Joy, and like Sarah, I too am from Zimbabwe. I am a senior majoring in statistics and data science. I use she, her, her pronouns. Similarly, my life hasn't changed much, I don't think, off campus now, but I think once quarantine's done, I'd like to head on a flight to Canada to visit my brother.
Hi everyone, my name is Calvin. I'm from Fairfax, Virginia, which is also like Khalil, outside of Washington, D.C. I'm a senior studying mechanical engineering. My pronouns are he, him, his. And the first thing I'm probably going to do when the quarantine is over, just hang out with some friends and have some human interaction outside of my family.
And I'll finish things off with the introductions. My name is Harley. I'm also one of the moderators with Calvin. My hometown is also in Las Vegas, just like Grace. I'm currently a senior majoring in economics. My pronouns are he, him, his. And the first thing that I'm gonna do when quarantine is over is probably eat some Korean barbecue. That would be pretty good. So now that you have gotten a glimpse of who our panelists are, who our moderators are, we're going to begin with the most commonly asked questions. Thank you everyone for submitting your questions through the Google form. There were a lot more questions than we can answer in this format. So with just an hour, we decided to condense all of those questions together and synthesize the most commonly asked ones. So without further ado, the first question is, describe Yale's student culture and academic climate.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. So when I first looked at that question, the first thing that came to mind was that Yale students are very socially active, meaning they care a lot about social issues like climate change, immigration, and such. And I think that's great because oftentimes students organize protests or just different things to have change on campus. For example, changing of like the residential college names and such to make it more inclusive. And with that being said, I also think that Yale students are very inclusive, whether that's going to parties or joining different clubs or events. There are rarely any like parties or clubs that are exclusive to a certain group of students. So if you're interested in anything on campus, you're generally welcomed. And another thing is that you guys may have read articles about Yale students being snowflakes or like sensitive. I do think that is true from my perspective, and that was one thing that I had to adjust to, just like thinking about the stuff I say and the way I interact with people and how that will affect other students. So I would say that that's a thing that I noticed with Yale students. In terms of academic climate, I would say that Yale students are very collaborative. Even with the pre-med track that I went through, oftentimes students think that pre-meds are cutthroat, but from my experience, people are actually very collaborative and willing to share notes and form study groups. So yeah, in general, I would say it's a very collaborative and friendly environment.
Yeah, and I'd like to follow up on that. So I agree. I think if I describe Yale's student life in a few words, I would say it's a very friendly and social environment. And I think that's something that a lot of schools will have, but to highlight things very specific to Yale and Yale's experience, I think one thing is definitely like even the way that the school is built. So we live in something called residential colleges, which is a concept you'll hear over and over again, which is basically like our dormitory buildings, but a lot more than that because they're like smaller communities that everyone is just randomly assorted into that kind of reflect the larger campus demographic and just like culture. And I think as a part of that residential college system, one thing that you're like from the first year that you're in Yale, you're usually going to live in suites of like 4 to maybe at most like 10 people. And the way that the suites work is that you usually have a roommate and then you have a common room. And that common room is there because they want you to get to know the people you live with. And then once you get to know the people you live with, you get to know people in your residential college. And then it kind of goes outwards to your classes and to your extracurriculars. And I think that community, the fostering of community is something that's very, very specific to Yale and something that really affects every student's life and the way that they navigate campus. Because you will know, like you'll know a lot of people, if not by name, like by face, more than usual. I think maybe more than other schools. I think that really colors the student life. There's also a lot of like parties. It's like very social. It's a very like charismatic place. Like there's a lot of people that you'll meet if you got the chance to visit, which unfortunately you can't. But like you'll meet people for the first time and just like get such a good vibe from them. And that was something that I saw compared to other schools more prominent at Yale. And I think in terms of the academic culture, I think collaborative is the first word that comes to mind. Like I remember in my high school, there were people like all gunning to get into a really good college. So like, they wouldn't help out with P-sets. Like they didn't have P-sets back then. They wouldn't have help out with like homework and stuff like that. And I found that at Yale, no matter what like assignment it is, people are generally able to like help you out and like really are really chill about stuff like that, which is something that I'm very grateful for because I had no idea what I was doing when I first came in. But yeah, that probably colors student life and academic life with the main themes that are very specific to Yale.
I want to build off Khalil's point about the suite situation. I think that's one of the things about Yale that really made my experience really, really awesome. Max, Guan, Calvin, and I were suite mates for 2 years, and they really kind of solidified my friend group. And when you're in a suite, you're literally living together. You're having every meal together. You're working together. It's a really unique thing about Yale that I think is really special is that residential college system. And then to Guan's point about the climate change, we do have some people in this chat, some of our panelists who were involved in the protest at the Yale-Harvard game, if any of you want to talk about that and what that experience was like. Max?
So pertaining to the Yale Harvard game protest, I think it was last Yale Harvard game. Was that correct?
I think it was
Okay,
this year's. Yeah,
this
yeah.
year's right.
Mm.
I believe was it during halftime or it was near the end of second quarter, something like that. Um, Essentially, a bunch of students uh, organized a session where the students would storm the field in order to get their thoughts across about climate change and express their opinions about it. And I thought that it was a very well organized event, and it definitely made headlines. So that was very interesting to be a part of.
Yeah, and I think that kind of ties into the whole student culture thing about like people are really passionate about issues, and you're going to find other people passionate about similar things, and it's a really powerful climate where people can come together and fight for what they believe in.
Yeah, thank you everyone for your comments, and Max for pitching in. So our next question is, what do you recommend for choosing courses for the first semester at Yale? Should you focus on like all the requirements that you need to take for your liberal arts major, or not liberal arts major, for your liberal arts education, or should you go more for intended classes that, or classes that you need for your intended major?
I can touch on that to start. Being that I was a pre-med, I had the pre-med mentality before going to Yale. I was pretty set on the courses that I knew I needed to take throughout my undergraduate career. But one regret I have is during my freshman year or first year, I took a bunch of courses that were just major requirements. And I did not really look into detail about the first year seminars and different types of opportunities like classes that would have expanded my interest in different courses. And that's one thing that I do regret, because Yale, while it is a liberal arts and research focused campus, there are a variety of different courses that are offered that could change your mind and even change your major. And that's one experience that I wish I looked more into.
Yeah, I can also touch on that. I agree with Max. You can definitely still focus on your academic goals, whether that's pre-med or whatever major that you already decided to do coming into college, and still like pick your classes. You can still explore other classes in the liberal arts. For example, as a pre-med, I was able to take 2 pre-med classes every semester, but still fit in other requirements and things classes that weren't related to pre-med. So if I could go back, I would definitely explore different subjects and classes outside of my major as a first year, because you still have so much time to take your major requirement, and whether that's pre-med or any other requirements later on in your Yale career.
Yeah, and I'll add something else to that. So as you may have read in some of the like bios, a bunch of us are first year counselors, and our job is to help first years navigate the whole like first year thing. And a big piece of advice I would say is to think about not just your first semester, but your first year as a whole. And to not like limit yourself in terms of like only taking classes in your major, because a lot of people come in and they're undecided about their major. I'm sure like most of you are undecided about what you want to study. And so if there's anything that you're even curious about, something that you might want to learn a little bit more about, like first year is a good time to like take an intro class in that. If there's like a subject, an area of like study that you've never even heard of, but you're curious about, like first year is the time to do that. But if you are one of those people who like are certain about what they want to do, like if you're coming in as pre-med, there's always space in your schedule to like fit in something else. Just so you can explore a little and enjoy what college is about.
And to your point about switching majors, I mean, I came into Yale, I think as a CS computer science major, and I think I changed to econ when I was a sophomore, and then as a junior, so like with practically like 2 semesters left, I changed to a history major this year. So I think that definitely is a testimony to like, you don't necessarily know what you're going to come in doing. I definitely came in thinking I wanted the most like lucrative major, but then I found that I really like wanted to enjoy my Yale experience more, and like maybe even go to law school, which is something that kind of came as a change of heart halfway through my college career. And you're able to have that flexibility at a liberal arts institution like Yale, which I think is something that's like very, very powerful, because otherwise you might lock yourself into something that you're not as passionate about.
Thank you, Max, Guan, SJ, and Khalil for those answers. This next one's really interesting. So our next question, the reason why we wanted to structure a panel like this, we're not sponsored by any organization like the Yale Admissions Office or anything. So this gives everyone an opportunity to speak about things, speak honestly and openly about Yale and the climate in general. So this next question is, what do you dislike most about Yale? Or what is one thing that you think it could improve on?
Yeah, so I can touch on that. Yale has been around since like the 1700s, and so they've had a long, long time to fix a lot of the issues and the kinks that exist within the community. But I think there are still some issues. I don't know how many people in this video call are parents, but I had a chance to go through the admitted students parents page a couple of days ago. And a lot of parents were complaining that Yale wasn't very transparent about some of the decisions that they made in response to COVID-19. And I think this brings up a very interesting point that I think a lot of students at Yale also deal with, is that sometimes we don't get communication about everything. So when there's decisions made on a very high level within like our university president, like President Solovey, or even within like high levels within like Yale College, within like for example, like Dean Chun, I think there is a sense of like lack of communication kind of trickling down to the students at times. So I do think one of the things that I do dislike about Yale is that there are at times a lack of transparency when there are big issues that are being discussed on campus. But I do think that there are other organizations that are at Yale that do compensate for that. So just because the communication isn't directly coming from the university president or the Yale College dean, there are other avenues for you to find out what sorts of conversations are happening on campus, whether that be through your extracurriculars or through your professors. So even though I do think it is kind of a loss that at times like institutions, not just Yale, but I think a lot of like higher level institutions are not always open about some of the decisions that they make, I think it is ultimately like at Yale, we still have a tight enough community within our faculty and students that like word still gets
out. Yeah, I can follow up on that point. I think one thing that kind of, I think it's a personal take, but I think one thing that affected my Yale experience, there's a huge culture shock coming to Yale. The demographics, I think you can look them on the internet. They're pretty reflective of the America, I think, but it is a predominantly white institution, which I think affects like your social life and other things in certain ways. I remember like going to a frat party and then playing just like blasting country music, and I was like what is going on? Like, this is kind of crazy. And I think, once again, this is a very personal take, but I think that culture shock is something that I have dealt with for a long time, and has been something that has made me like kind of seek out people like of my background, which is very helpful because there are some things as cultural centers at Yale, which kind of like foster like cultural development and affinity within like Yale's different demographics. But I think that initial culture shock was something that I definitely faced, and I think like, I guess the reason like I dislike that part of Yale is because like I think that is like a very overwhelming majority, and it's kind of hard to find those spaces. Because once again, like these cultural centers are parts of the university, but if you're looking for like a party at night, you are going to be like kind of forced to go to one of those options. Not forced, but like most likely you're going to end up at one of those options.
I will add though that as difficult as it is to find your friend circle or your friend group, it is very possible. Like at night, we have this thing called Global Grounds where you could get free snacks and go play like board games, or like there's like video game clubs. There's literally anything that you could think about. Like I am sure like somewhere on the corner of campus there is a basket weaving club. Like you can find literally anything that you're interested in on campus at Yale. So even though like yes, like majority of the campus is like going out to parties and stuff at weekends, like it doesn't take much to find a place at Yale that you'll fit in.
Great, thank you guys for sharing. For our next question, we want to ask the panelists, how have you changed the most in college, and how has Yale influenced that change?
Well, I feel like I'm talking so much back to back. But
You're good.
I feel like before I came to Yale, I didn't really ask for help very much. And I think it was because a lot of the time I was very self-sufficient. And I think a lot of students who get into Yale are very self-sufficient, right? Like I think you went through high school, you knew that as long as you studied and did whatever like extracurricular that you did, like you would be fine. So I think like we've all grown up in different areas, but like I think we've ultimately all gained this like intuition to not really ask for help and don't really know when to ask for help. But I think that's something that I learned at Yale, is that you can get help for literally anything. Like you could get help whether it's because you need money to fly back home on like a break and like you can't afford to fly back home, or maybe like your laptop broke and like you can't do your homework assignment, like whatever the case may be. Sometimes it's like difficult to know what questions to ask and when to ask for help. But I think one really, really cool thing at Yale that you definitely can't find anywhere else is that you can almost always ask for help and someone somewhere will always have an answer for you.
I think maybe one of the biggest ways that I've changed since coming to Yale is just like how open I am to things, like trying new experiences. I was really scared of that before college, I think. Meeting new people who maybe are like really different from me, and just like understanding new viewpoints. I'm from a really small town, and a lot of people here are very similar, just like in the things that they do, in the way that they think. And that's like not a problem at all or anything. But I think going to Yale was like really refreshing in the sense that it helped me like just become more open and kind of find what I believed versus like what I've been like raised to believe in my town. So I guess just like being open to like everything is like a way that I've changed.
Yeah, I think the biggest way I've grown is I think I've become more outgoing. I think I've just grown more into myself at Yale. I think that's something that happens a lot for a bunch of students, because we talk about college being like a journey of self-discovery and all that jazz, and it is, because like you're away from family, you're away from people who you're used to being around, and you're sort of placed into a space where you need to figure out who you are. And so I think I've definitely lost myself along that journey at some point, but then I found myself again. And having found myself, I think I am more like certain of what my convictions are and the sort of like values that I hold. I'm certain of those things now. I think, yeah, going through like college in general will teach you how to like swim against the current when you need to. Yeah, I think one of the like little things about me that is maybe not like college normal is that I didn't drink until I was 21, even though in Zimbabwe it's legal to drink when you're 18, and that's where I'm from. So when I was in Sim, I'll drink, then I'll get back to campus and I wouldn't drink. But that was just like a personal choice, right? That's one of those things that like I've had to like decide to stick to on my own. It's like a personal choice, and a lot of people have to like make those sort of choices for yourselves when you realize that maybe this is a time when I need to swim against the current. And I've definitely become more confident in those decisions in my 4 years at Yale.
Oh, Kevin's muted.
All right, thanks, Harley. But yeah, thank you guys for sharing. The next question that we want to touch on has to do with the idea of imposter syndrome and like insecurities. So obviously coming into college from high school is a huge change for most students. You're living away from home for like 70% of the year with people just as impressive, if not more impressive than you are, with lots of different views and values that they hold. It's just a completely new environment for you. So you might feel like you're out of place or things like that. So we want to ask the panelists to describe some of their insecurities that they might have had as an incoming first year joining such like an impressive first year class at Yale.
Yeah. So I came in and I'd done English and mainly just English stuff in high school and everything, but then came in and I decided I was going to do DS, directed studies, for if you haven't heard of it. And it's like this program is about 125 people, and you do history, philosophy, and literature, like of the Western canon, starting with like the oldest stuff, and it's over the whole year, going to the whole of your first year. And I came in, I'd never done any philosophy before. And then you're assigned to go and read Socrates and Aristotle. And I'm like, what is this stuff? And it made no sense to me. And I was like, who do I think I am coming here and writing an essay? In DS, you write an essay like in the second week, a 5-page essay. Like, I've never typed a 5-page essay before. And all these other people have their laptops and they've been using laptops to write essays and everything. And we wrote our final exams on paper and we had them mailed to England to be graded. So I had no clue how any of it went. And in the beginning, it was just like, who do I think I am? Like, why am I here? And like, how do I just basically that, just how do I ... lots of question marks. But then and it started pretty quickly, because over time that I realized that there are only a few people who really know what they're talking about. You learn pretty quickly that a lot of people like to make it look like they think they know what they're talking about, but then if you actually just pay attention to what's going on, they don't know that much. And you're not dumb, you got into Yale, like, it's okay. And then also, it was, a lot of the work was individual, at least in DS, where we would be in class and work together, and then I had friends who I would talk to. But when I was writing my essays, I was writing my own essay, and I sort of came into my own, because I realized that, it's just between me and the professor. No one else has to read this. And the professor's like, hey, come to me with your ideas. Let's talk. Come to office hours. And I went to office hours, and they're like, yes, that's so interesting. And I didn't think it was that interesting, but I think they're like geared to make you think that, or to show you that you have a brain, you have thoughts, and they're worth things. And with the practice, you start just learning about yourself, and you start becoming more confident. Sorry, I've lost track of what the question was, but it was just, yes, in the beginning, I definitely felt like I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I mean, I'm coming and taking philosophy at university, like, what is that? But by the end, I was like, oh, so the missing shade of blue is because of this. And it was just, you have to let go of any expectations that you think that you have for yourself, and that you think other people have of you, because they really don't. Everyone is just as insecure as you are, and maybe you're the better person for not trying to mask it by pretending like you know everything. So just be that good person who says, hey, I don't really understand this theory, let's talk about it, and everyone will be so grateful to you, I promise.
Yeah, I think Yale is difficult for many people. And I think all of you have gotten into Yale, which means you do belong at Yale, right? But that doesn't mean Yale's not going to be difficult. Yale is difficult for like the smartest kids. Yeah, I think maybe like 1% of the class won't find Yale difficult, but like 99% of the class will. And so if you find yourself in that 99%, you are not alone. Like 1,200 other kids are in the same boat as you. And personally, my struggle was twofold. So it was academically, first of all, I came in as a math major. I took a prerequisite for the math major, and it screwed me over. And I was like, dear God, like I am failing the prereq. Do I even belong here? So that was like very difficult for me. And then I had to like figure out like which major was best for me, and also learn to start going for office hours. Like stuff like that was like, small but big. And then the second part of it was socially. I mean, Zim is very conservative, and Yale is like a bastion of liberalism. And so just like getting to campus, and like everyone expects you to say the correct things, and like, address people in their like pronouns. I never heard of what a pronoun is. Like prior to Yale, it was like, of course, girls are she and like boys are he. It's not a thing in Zim at all. And like, so it was like adjustments like that took a while, but also made me feel like I didn't belong, because I didn't fully understand when I got there. But then, you learn and you realize that like people have different life experiences. So yeah, it was in that I also, like, as I mentioned earlier, like lost myself and like trying to become more American, which is just not a thing because I'm not American. And I've learned to like lean more into my own identity as well, and also like respect other people's experiences and identities. So we'll be fine.
Yeah, I think for me coming in, I had a big insecurity surrounding like my background, because I'm from a really small rural town and I'm like first gen low income. So I was aware that a lot of like my classmates probably had just like opportunities and resources that I hadn't before. And I was really scared that this would put me behind. And I mean, it was like a hard transition, I think, but I think that's true for most people, not just people who come from like places like me. And Yale has a lot of resources that help you like navigate that. Like there's free tutors, and I used them a lot first year. And just like there are a lot of communities that you can become a part of that I think will help you find that you're not alone in those insecurities too, and just make you feel more like welcome.
Going off of what Carly and Sarah just said, and SJ as well, I came from a similar background as Carly. I'm first gen, and I came to Yale on full financial aid. And I'd say one of the hardest things for me was being from a rural city in Florence, Alabama, where I went to a public high school and didn't really have many of the resources as many of your peers may have at Yale. But the biggest insecurity for me was definitely asking for help and learning how to ask for questions, as Grace mentioned earlier. And I feel that that's like the most powerful tool you could take during your first year, because there are so many resources. And if you just ask for help, people will help you, and they'll be really happy to help you with it.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for your honesty. SJ, I totally feel you on the dropping the class. Difficulty with the prereq. I ended up dropping my intro macro class, and it still has a W on my transcript. So everyone goes through these experiences, and I'm majoring in econ now. That was a rough class. So the last question we have for the primary question part is, what has been your most memorable experience at Yale? Maybe we can start with Max.
Sure. My most favorite memory at Yale probably has to be living in the residential college system. I grew up in a very small town where everyone knew each other by the first name, and everyone was there to support each other. And having that supportive community while being so far away from home was really essential to making my undergraduate experience at Yale just that much more memorable. Specifically, being able to live with Harley, Calvin, and Guan, three of your fellow speakers today. They all basically made my undergraduate experience a lot more fun.
So I couldn't really like narrow it down to one memorable experience. So I'm just going to briefly talk about two. But one was my figure skating show. So I'm one of the captains of the figure skating team at Yale, and it's like one of my favorite things to do, just like skating in general. But also, I really love my team, and I really love that I've gotten to be a part of it the past 4 years. And this year's show was really special to me because just like watching my last show come together and doing like a senior performance, and then seeing a bunch of my friends who are some of the speakers today come support me meant a lot. But also Nathan Chen performed in our show, and just like as a figure skater, that was like crazy to be able to see him do a quad like right in front of my face. But also I know that like a lot of my friends just like freaked out, so that was fun that like a lot of us got to experience that together. And then also the Harvard Yale game this year was just like crazy. We had a really crazy comeback, and just like I think like experiencing the like happiness of coming back from that was like really fun. Just like to be around all my friends for that. So
I have a kind of different memorable experience because it has happened many times, but I work as an events aide in my residential college, and we have the seniors have wine tastings. They organize wine tastings for the seniors at our head of college's house. And last year I did a few of them. Like, they have a white wine tasting and a champagne tasting and a red wine tasting and a beer tasting. And I got to work those events, and and I got paid to go and hang out with this fancy guy who knew all about wine and these really cool seniors and pour wine. And it was just so much fun. And then I got to do it this year as well. But this year, as Harley, Max, Gone, and will remember, I got to pour wine for them. And it was just so much fun hanging out with my friends and like giving them extra wine, opening up all the bottles. And it sounds like such a trivial thing, but it's just been like, it was just really great and extremely memorable.
Yeah, so Carly brought up something about Nathan Chen, and that actually jogged a really interesting memory of mine. I think it's crazy to go to a school with an Olympic figure skater. I think this kind of goes hand in hand with like imposter syndrome. But there was one time when I was like ULAing for a statistics course. So ULAs are undergraduate learning assistants. Basically, they're like peer tutors. So if you're like struggling in a class, usually like a class will have peer tutors that are able to help you, or like set aside time to like help you work through your homework assignments or whatever. And Nathan Chen, I literally did not know him. I know nothing about figure skating. Literally emailed me out of nowhere and was like, hey, can you help me on like the homework? And I was like, this Olympic figure skater just asked me to help him with his statistics homework. Like, I think that was like crazy, and it made me realize like we go to school with some really, really incredible people. But you're also there because you're also very incredible. And everyone has like a part to contribute to the community that we call Yale. And I think that's very easy to forget sometimes, but I think that's something that you should always remember, that being part of the community means that you are there because you have something to contribute to the community.
Right, exactly. Yale would be nothing without its students. But anyways, moving on from these questions, we're going to move on to some rapid fire questions. So we're going to ask some very short questions to our panelists, and they could take about like 1 or 2 sentences to answer the questions. We'll start with the first question, which is, what is your favorite class that you took in your first year? And maybe Grace, you can start us off.
Yeah, that sounds really dumb, but I took Calculus 2 my first year, and I actually had taken Calculus 2 before, so it was like a very smooth roller coaster, and I just remember like all of my friends being like, bro, like Calc 2 is so hard, and it's so bad, and so poorly taught, and I was just sitting there like, bro, like this was so chill, like I don't know what you're talking about, but that was a really fun class for me. Needless to say, I almost failed Math 120, which is the class afterwards, so yeah.
Yeah, for me, it was bioethics and law. I think that's a must-take class before you graduate Yale. I think a lot of us on this panel have taken that class. You learn about like organ donation, physician-assisted suicide and such. And it was really interesting to just think about a lot of these controversial topics.
The class that I took my first year that I enjoyed the most was something called Cosmology and Literature. So it was about the origin story of the universe across like world religions, and not just the major ones, but like also smaller, like localized religions. And I think it was really cool because like I grew up pretty Christian. I got into this one debate with this like atheist kid, and just like changed my entire life. So it was really life changing for sure.
I think my favorite class from first year was abnormal psychology, which is just one of the intro psych lectures. But as a psych major, like I think it really was like a lot of fun.
Max?
I think my favorite first year class was definitely basic drawing. I'm not an artist. I've never claimed to be an artist in my life, but it was just something super different and super fun that that I was able to do. So definitely take art classes. They're pretty cool.
Yeah, I loved my German class. I started with no knowledge of German, and I took it over other languages because the final project was making a video instead of a final. And it was just the best class. I did it for 3 semesters, and it was worth getting up every day for. And I got my language credit done, so it was a great class.
My favorite first year class was emotional intelligence with Mark Brackett. He's the professor. I learned that I am not particularly emotionally intelligent.
Same. A quick interjection. There is a class, you may have heard of Happiness. That class is on Coursera now. I think it's free for a certain amount of time. So feel free to take that. It's taught by one of our superstar professors, Lori Santos, who is also one of the head of colleges. So we're gonna jump to the next rapid fire question, which is, what is your favorite place to study?
My favorite place is the School of Management, which is just this like really cool building. It has a lot of nice like breakout rooms for studying in small groups. So I go there a lot.
I think for me, it's the Bass Library isolation rooms. These are individual rooms that just have like a table and a chair inside of it, nothing to distract you. So whenever I have a midterm or final, I just go in there and I can get a lot of work done.
I love my room. I've just always studied there. There's no distractions, like people distractions.
I would say Watson Center. It's the building right across from Mary College. There are a lot of collaborative study and conference rooms where you can just like work with people.
I actually like to study at Claire's. It's this little like bakery on the corner of like one of like, I think it's on the opposite side of Old Campus where all the first years stay, but it's like a really cool spot that has a lot of really good baked goods.
During the week, my room over the weekend, Steep Cafe in the new science building just recently opened this year, and it's just like this cute little space, and there's rarely other people there over the weekend.
Yeah, to round it off, my favorite place to study is the Yale Law School library, actually, because you can get in as an undergrad, and you have a bunch of graduate students that are low key like where I want to be, just like grinding it out. So it gives you motivation.
Great. Yeah. I also like to study in my room a lot during my school year. But obviously there are a lot of endless places you can study at. We're going to move on to our next question. We just want to ask the panelists, what is your biggest regret so far at Yale?
And we'll start with Max for that question. He's thinking.
Biggest regret at Yale.
No regrets?
I would say I don't really think I had many regrets. Probably maybe going to Toads one last time. I didn't get to say goodbye to that. So Toads is a Yale friendly venue where you can have social events on certain days of the week. That's my only regret.
Biggest regret is definitely not exploring more majors. I came in and I immediately eliminated anything that had writing in it. And that's a lot of majors. So regret is not exploring more.
I think biggest regret for me is not going to East Rock. East Rock is this park near campus that's supposed to be like really beautiful during the fall when like the trees are turning colors and such. And I heard there's a lot of animals there too. So I really want to go there after spring break, but unfortunately, yeah, couldn't go back.
My biggest regret is listening too much to my parents in making decisions about my Yale career. So specifically, like definitely coming in as a computer science major when I knew I wasn't really passionate about it. But my parents were like, "Oh, it's like the best major to like get a good job," which I have a good job, not because computer science. So like, don't let anyone fool you. I think that was definitely my biggest regret.
I think my biggest regret has just been like saying you're gonna do something with friends and then not doing it, especially since like as a senior I don't really get to go back anymore. And I think there are a lot of things that I said I would do with my friends, just like at some point, and then we never did them. So make solid plans with people.
Mine is like the opposite of the exploring different majors ones, because I came in knowing I wanted to be an English major, and then I spent my first semester sophomore year thinking I was a history major, and I missed out on a whole semester of English classes, and just English classes are better than history classes. So if you do know what you want to do, then do it, because I regret taking other classes when I could have been taking English classes.
Yeah, I think what I regret the most is not having done a study abroad. There's a lot of really cool study abroad programs where you can like go to like the London School of Economics or like go study Korean in like Seoul University. But I don't think I ever had an opportunity to do that, so I do regret that a lot.
Great. Thank you everyone for your honesty and for sharing those with us. This will be the last rapid fire question for the session. So this is a no-brainer, but why Yale over Harvard and / other universities? Give us a one sentence kind of marketing pitch for Yale. We can start with SJ. 1 or 2 sentences.
Okay, I was not ready for one sentence, but okay.
You can go longer. You can go
Go
longer.
off.
Okay, I
Go
applied
off,
to
go
one
crazy.
school. I am one of those people who applied to one school. Granted, I applied early, but I only applied to Yale because I was in love. I looked at the Harvard website and I was like, I looked at the Yale website and I'm like, okay, this looks about right. Yale has a very strong emphasis on the undergraduate experience. So I can't speak beyond undergraduate because my experience has only been undergrad, but honestly, Yale like invests everything into their undergrads. So if you are looking for a place where like you have everything at your disposal, Yale is definitely the place to be.
Yeah, I definitely want to echo that. So I was choosing between MIT and Yale as my like final decision, but like I got into other schools and I was like very much undecided. Like in the regular decision, there's all these things coming at you at once. And the reason I solidified for Yale was the exact same thing, like undergraduate focus. Like you can hear about a school like Harvard. Like Harvard has all these great graduate schools, and like you can't really match them in a lot of ways. Same with like MIT or like all the other schools. But I think when it comes to the undergraduate experience specifically, especially with like the whole liberal arts academic culture of trying to round you out as a strong person, a strong academic, holistically, I think Yale definitely does that at a rate that's like like comparable to other schools, from the residential colleges to the cultural centers to like the funding for study abroad, to like just the general like atmosphere and the way that like literally the buildings are built for you to get to know the people around you. I think that's something very specific to Yale, and I think that undergraduate focus will help you even later on, like down the line, because you can look back to that Yale experience and like really see that you were fulfilled in a way that it might be lost down other school with a more graduate student focus.
Great, thank you too for sharing. And that pretty much concludes our section on the prepared questions that we took from the Google form. We know we weren't able to answer all of your questions just because that would take forever, a lot of time, but now we're allowing you guys to ask any questions that are still lingering on your mind that have been left unanswered. So we're gonna allow students to unmute themselves and ask questions as they please. And for everyone else that's listening and doesn't have a question to ask, we ask you to remain unmuted in the meantime so that we can hear the questions and our panelists will answer your questions.
Yeah, there's also a raise hand function.
Does everyone know how to do the raise hand function? To raise your hand, you press manage participants, and at the bottom, you can raise your hand. It looks like we have a question from Lily.
Can you unmute your, I think, are you unmuted?
She's muted right now.
Okay,
she.
perfect.
Hi.
Yes.
Okay, I apologize for the chaos behind me. I'm just in my room.
That's all of us.
So I'm a pre-frosh, obviously. Yay, I got in early. So I've known for quite a while. And I was just wondering if any of you guys are on the daily news or know enough about it to answer my question. I'm interested in photography, and I was wondering what the process is for becoming a Yale Daily News photographer and how I could possibly accomplish that.
I can talk about that. I was Yale Daily News staff reporter for a very brief moment of my Yale career. Yale Daily News is actually a very, very large part of campus, so you definitely can't miss them. During the first couple of days of just even like, I'm blanking, what is Camp Yale? Yeah, during the first few days of Camp Yale, there's like a bunch of orientations and open houses. So they'll hold like information sessions for you to go and like talk to them about kind of what it means to work for the YDN. Also, if you want to email me after this Zoom call, my email is grace.kang@yale.edu. But I can connect you with actually like the head like photographer or whatever for the YDN, and like we can get you started on that right away. One of the cool things that you'll realize about Yale is that like people are eager to put you into contact with other people. So hit me up after this call and I'll be more than happy to put you in contact.
Thank you so much. It's exciting.
Calvin, you're muted.
Sorry, but thanks, Grace. I was just saying thanks, Grace, for answering that. And we have another question from Hillary. We'll allow you to ask right now.
Hello, hi, I'm Hillary. So I was admitted in December, so I've known for a while that I was in, but I just committed. So my main question that I haven't really gotten an answer to is like, because Yale is like such an elite institution that is kind of overwhelmed with like very wealthy people, do you feel that, you know, as a person, or maybe like people that are like not financially unstable, but, you know, aren't like going into Yale with a ton of money, do you feel like there's always an expectation to kind of rise to the luxury of spending a lot on campus, or just in general?
I can talk about that a bit. I really didn't at all. Like I said before, like I'm from like a low income family, and so like I knew going to Yale I would be surrounded by like a lot of wealth, which has been like a lot less of a problem than I thought it would be. A lot of my friends are actually in like very similar situations as me, and it's not hard to like make friends that are. I think there's like a really strong like first gen low income community on campus, and like not saying you have to hang out with them, but like, you know, like I've had an easy time because a lot of my friends are from those groups. Like they don't expect me to spend money because they also don't want to spend money. I mean, if you want to spend money, there are lots of ways to do that on campus. But like, yeah, I don't think I had a hard time like budgeting and things like that, or like feeling pressured to spend money.
And Sarah, I saw you also wanted to answer.
Did you say Sarah?
Yeah, Sarah.
Yes, Sarah. Yeah, and also you can get by without spending money as well. So like, I mean, coming from Zimbabwe, like we didn't even have US dollars in Zimbabwe. So you come to America, it's like, what is this stuff? And you can get all of your meals on campus, and like there's plenty of places to go on campus, and you have work to and everything. So I've never felt like I needed to go to those expensive restaurants. You hear about them, and you know some people go to the fancy ones, but like there's so much other stuff and so much inexpensive stuff to do that it has never bothered me.
I just want to add a comment on here. Oh, did someone say something?
I did.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, SJ. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I think similar to Sarah. You know, like you'll find and Carly as well. Like you'll find your people. I think at the start there's, I don't know, it's like this weird balance where some people like are more than happy to spend money and some people are not. But you know, like slowly you'll start to understand yourself and your friends, and like even like you'll find friend groups where like obviously there'll be friend groups where someone's like super rich and someone comes from like a super low income background, and like those friendships work as well because like you figure out like how to balance your friendships. There's a lot of free events on campus. Lots of free food. You will get tired of free food at Yale at some point. So like there's never really like a need to spend money. Like colleges host a lot of events. Sometimes if you're depending on the organizations you're in, sometimes they'll like do free restaurant like trips and stuff like that. So they'll definitely you'll be fine whether you want to spend money or not.
I want to add a comment on this as well. One thing I wish I knew my first year was that you can go to your residential colleges for financial assistance as well. One thing I didn't know was that they have funds set out for like winter gear. Coming from Las Vegas, I never knew, I don't know what a boot is or like a jacket, like a thick one. So I had to put expenses on those things. And if I had known that there were like these resources to help us out with that, that would have been amazing rather than having to like pull money out of certain places. So definitely ask for help and look for different resources.
Great, thank you all for sharing. Hopefully that answered your question. Next, we'll be moving on to Benjamin, if you want to speak up and share your question.
Hi, so I'm lucky enough to be deciding between Yale and really one other school. Not Harvard, thank God, I would never go there. But I was wondering, do you feel like people on campus really are excited about learning and like unabashedly excited about learning both in class and outside of class?
Sarah?
I don't know how to raise my hand, so I'm just like doing clapping and thumbs up and everything. But yes, 100% people are so excited about learning. Like that's something that I commented on when I went back home after my first year, and people asking, oh, it's like, what's Yale like? And like people are just so enthusiastic that everybody has their, if you've been admitted, it's because you have something or some things that you love to do. And when you're here, every single person you meet loves to do something. And if it's, I mean, not necessarily everything academic, like maybe there's somebody's into singing and that's just what they do. But it's such a great environment for growing because everyone around you is excited about something. And so, yeah, I would say that it's a wonderful place to be learning because it's not like toxic. It's not, oh, I want to get this and I'm not going to help you, like we talked about at the beginning. It's just everyone is so excited to be helping each other and learning. And it sounds kind of utopic, I don't know how to say the word, and like I'm just trying to sell you the school, but it's true. Like we just are really excited to do what we do.
Thank you for that, Sarah. For our future questions, feel free to just unmute yourselves. For our panelists, just unmute yourselves and feel free to jump in. Our next question is from Ryan. Feel free to unmute yourself and also ask our panelists your questions. We can't hear you. I see that you're unmuted, but let's see if we can hear you. Double check the audio settings and make sure that it's connected to your certain mic.
Or feel free to message any of us directly or
Yeah.
chat it in the group chat?
Yeah, feel free to pop it in the group chat as well. But in the meantime, let's go with Valentina. Feel free to unmute yourself and while we get Ryan's question.
Hi, I'm looking to major in applied math, so I'm not really sure. So I chose applied math because I wanted to do something like statistics or like business or economics. So I'm basically undecided by heart. So how do you know to, what shaped your experience or made you decide to major in like some field of math?
I can touch on that. And I think someone else in this call was also majoring in statistics and data science, so they can touch on whatever I don't touch. But initially, I was actually also an applied math major. I was applied math, debating if I wanted to switch to math, then debating if I wanted to switch to statistics and data science, and then debated if I wanted to switch to econ and math. So it's very, very fluid. So if anything, like you don't have to decide. And I think one of the cool things about applied math is that it's very intersectional. Like a lot of the core classes for applied math are things that can be applied to any math. So you can really decide in your sophomore, junior, or even your senior year, and you would still be okay. Because the classes that really vary between the 4 majors that I had initially listed, it's very minimal differences. But I think what really helped me decide what major I wanted to major in was talking to the other kids that were also thinking about majoring in those different majors and thinking about like why they chose that. So a lot of students were talking about how like statistics and data science kind of combines math with like CS, because you have to take all these courses on like data structures and stuff like that, which you wouldn't necessarily have to do in like a math major. And I think there's a lot of like intricacies of all of these different math related majors that a lot of the upper class level, like whether it's like sophomores, juniors, or seniors, like they'll know, right? And I think part of like going to Yale, or even part of the decision making process, is reaching out to those sophomores, juniors, and seniors and deciding, and asking them like, what makes your major unique, or like why did you pick your major? And I think that'll really help you guide kind of what you value and like what you think is important in deciding your own major.
Esther, did you have something to add to that? No? Okay, awesome. So we're at the 59-minute mark. We have a lot more questions to go. We have some questions in the group chat and everything, but we do want to take this time to say that thank you so much to our panelists for offering your time today. This is mostly, this is all volunteering. So thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to talk to all our amazing admits in the class of 2024. Hopefully to the admits, you found this helpful, informative, and also an enjoyable way to learn about the Yale College community. Sorry that you didn't get to experience Bulldog Days this year. Hopefully this was somewhat of a substitute for you to hear about our stories and for our panelists to share those with you. I also want to say that this is very much a word of mouth project, and we need all the help that we can get to expand it to other colleges. We want this for other colleges in the Ivy League, the UCs, and more colleges in general. So if you're interested in helping us build this project out at all, we're going to have more details in a follow-up email. And we'll also be sending out an email with college request forms if you want to see one for the other colleges that you're deciding between. Let us know about that. And with all that said, thank you again for joining us for this call. Some of our panelists will be staying afterwards to answer some more questions, so feel free to stay with us. And also thank you again to our panelists for your time. Thank you for being honest and for sharing your stories. And congratulations to you all on your acceptances, and we hope that you and your loved ones stay safe and healthy. And welcome to Yale.